Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. Thank you so much for being with us. We're looking today at biblical monotheism, and we're in the Stanford Dictionary of Philosophy online, plato.stanford.edu, under monotheism. So thanks for being here. Done some videos in times past on monotheism. And let's just get started. What we do is we interact with the text, we read a little bit, talk a little bit about it, and some of the things we're going to read today I'm going to disagree with. So biblical monotheism. So in the first place, we encounter very early the idea that Yahweh is the creator of heaven and earth, and that's from Rengren, page 67. Now, God willing, when we get to the end of this, it's part of a series, we're going to go through a monotheism bibliography, and so it'll tell us a little more about that. So I would say that's from Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. And when you get to Genesis 2, you're already seeing him known as Jehovah Elohim. So, and again, it's just retelling, in a sense, certain aspects of creation in Genesis chapter 2, kind of the sixth day. So let's keep going. Although it's true that polytheistic religions frequently include a creator in their pantheons, and that is true. Somebody I've really enjoyed reading on that subject is C.S. Lewis, because before he was a Christian, he was into the mythos and all of this. And, I read Edith Hamilton's Greek mythology, and it's fascinating how it seems like so much of it comes from the Bible. So I would say a lot of times polytheistic religions are just looking through sinful, demonic lenses at the truth of Scripture. So, okay, and these creators are often comparatively unimportant. There's a natural transition from the claim that a God has created heaven and earth to the belief he or she is the Lord of heaven and earth, and from there to monotheism. So it's saying, okay, in false belief systems, biblically, as you examine it in Scripture, false belief systems would go from looking at a pantheon of gods you've got the Titans and Saturn and all this in Greek mythology, and then Kronos, then you would have, where we get chronology, then you would have one of them being a creator. Babylonians have this pantheon, Sumerians, Akkadian. It's where you get Marduk and all of this. And some people, I guess, still worship Marduk today. And eventually you have a creator, and eventually, since creator, that must be it. And that's a process known as henotheism, that there's one God among many. And anyhow, we won't go into henotheism right now. So, in the second place, there are repeated affirmations that Yahweh, or Jehovah, as I would say, is the greatest and mightiest of the gods. That's again from Rengren, page 99. Finally, the religion of Israel is unique in demanding exclusive worship. Only Yahweh is to be worshipped by Israel. The extension of this notion to the idea that Yahweh is alone to be worshipped by everyone is natural, although perhaps not inevitable. Now, I would not say Yahweh developed in a pantheon of Israelite religion. I would say that the Bible is God's self-revelation, and they knew this before the flood, they knew this after the flood, Noah, Abraham, on and so forth. And that God was just choosing out a covenant people for himself, to show himself strong in the earth, and eventually become manifested in the flesh in Jesus. If these considerations are correct, then the characteristics of Yahweh that eventually led Israel to assert that Yahweh is the only God were his creation of heaven and earth, his power and greatness, and his right to exclusive worship. So it's saying there's three factors involved of Jehovah becoming the God of the Israelites and the only God: creation, heaven and earth, his power and greatness, and his right to exclusive worship. Again, I'm a creationist. I'm going to say the chicken came before the egg. I'm going to say there was Jehovah. And yes, they may have had to acknowledge Jehovah as that, but I don't think it was necessarily this gradual thing. I think you had Abrahamic understanding, you had Joseph's understanding of this, and then you would have maybe Egypt did influence Israelite understandings of God to varying degrees, maybe not everybody, but maybe a certain amount. But with the 10 plagues, God showed himself strong, judged the gods, little g, false deities of Egypt, which are just demons, and then came against Pharaoh, who considered himself a god, that his name might go throughout the earth. So parallel developments occurred elsewhere. Especially noteworthy is a phenomenon that sometimes occurs in polytheism, namely that during worship the god is treated as if he or she were unlimited and supreme, and given epitaphs that properly belong to other members of the pantheon. This occurred in certain stages of Vedic polytheism, for example. So sometimes you would have what they would begin to consider the one true and living God, but there would still be other gods in the pantheon. But they would begin to say this God is actually unlimited. It is omnipotent. It wasn't just part of many, fussing and all of this. More generally, the religious attitudes bound up with theistic worship, whether monotheistic or polytheistic, just a belief in God, that's what theism is, appear to have certain inner logic tending to lead the devotee to magnify the object for devotion by denying limitations and adding perfections. So, take away imperfections, take away limitations, you're getting an omnipotent God. The logical limit of this tendency is the ascription of such properties as universal sovereignty and unlimited power. The very same attitudes also tend to lead her to unreservedly commit herself to and center her life, or his life, on the God to whom she is devoted. It is therefore no accident that polytheistic systems often end up elevating one God or principle to the supreme position. See Zeus, for example, and in reinterpreting the others as its agents or manifestations. Interesting. They become, in other words, essentially monotheistic. This occurred, for example, both in late paganism and in Hinduism. So eventually, you go from the pantheism to one true God, and then the other deities over the course of centuries, decades, generations, begin to be seen as manifestations of that one true and living God. Again, I would say Smith proved conclusively in the early 30s that monotheism was the original belief system. I think, Göbekli Tepe, I'm not sure. It's in Turkey. It's considered the oldest city in the world by many. That it's a worship center, and they worshiped one God among many, but one deity. And so monotheism seems to be what is inherent in man, and this is in Romans 1. But because man is fallen, as Calvin said, man's heart is an idol factory, and so man then begins to make deities because of man's sinful nature and because of Satan. But monotheism, there's one true and living God. God is a he, not a they, and that is biblical monotheism. So we're going to continue along this line. Thanks for being here. Check out our other videos on a whole host of other subjects and join us daily. God bless you. We love you. Bye-bye.